wherever you're joining us from. It's good to have you come here to join us in this conversation today. Today we have with us the former Commissioner for Land and former Acting and Honorable Commissioner for Justice under His Excellency Mr. Peter Obi. He is Barrister Peter Afuba, SAN. So good to have you here with us today, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here too.
You're welcome, sir. So this is how we're going to run this space today. We're going to pass the mic over to Barrister Peter to speak for 30 minutes, after which we will open the floor for questions. But before I do that, welcome, Bishop. Good to have you here. My co-host is here. I just sent you an invite to come co-host with me. Yes, so before I pass the mic over to Barrister Peter Afuba, SAN, I'm going to give the mic over to my able co-host. Hello, Bishop. How are you doing today?
Being here. Yeah. Thank you very much, Bells. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir, for being here. We can't thank you enough for all you are here to do. It's going to be a historic space, and I'm sure we're going to have a fun time. And God will help us all to, articulate what our principal has done legally when it comes to the legal aspect of Anambra State. Welcome, sir. Bells, over to you. Then after Daddy finish, I'll take over.
Okay, thank you very much, Bishop. So we're going to pass the mic over to you now, sir, Barrister Peter Afuba, SAN. Good to have you here. For now, I'm not going to bring people up now until the barrister is done speaking. So please hang on a little bit for us and be patient. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm quite excited myself to be here today. I also thank the co-host. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir. Please go ahead.
I also thank your co-host for this rare opportunity. Let me start by saying that my understanding of what this is all about is not about P2B as a person, but it is about the effort, the opportunity, the objective to salvage our dear country, Nigeria. Having said this, let me introduce myself. I am Mr. Peter Afuba. I'm a legal practitioner by profession. And let me say straight away that I am not a politician. I am a core legal practitioner. I was called to the bar, the Nigerian bar, in 1983. And from 1983, I have been in private legal practice until 2009. Sorry, until 1999, when I was invited by the then governor of Anambra State, Dr. Chinwoke Mbadinuju, to serve in his cabinet as the Attorney General of Anambra State. I served for some time before I left voluntarily. I will not want to go into the reasons why I left because that may not be relevant for the purpose for which we are here. And I went back to legal practice. I continued in legal practice until 2006 when I was invited again by Mr. P2B to serve as the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in his government, which invitation I accepted. I was serving in that capacity up to the time when Mr. P2B was impeached. In the course of that impeachment, circumstances made it inevitable that I had to disengage. When Mr. P2B returned from impeachment, one of the first things he did was to recall me and assigned me to the Ministry of Lands, Survey and Town Planning as the commissioner in charge. I remained as Commissioner for Lands until the time, in fact, up to the end of his first tenure and into his second tenure, when he reshuffled his cabinet and brought me back once again as the Attorney General of Anambra State. So you will see that all through, I have more or less stuck to my profession as a legal practitioner. Since Mr. P2B left government in 2014, I have since returned back to legal practice. And that is what I'm doing up till now as I speak with you. So that gives you a brief view of my background. Now, I want to say also that just like Professor Stella Okonna, who was on your space a short while ago, some days ago, I was one of the few commissioners that served in the administration of Mr. P2B from the beginning up to the very end. So I think I'm in a position to know how that administration was run because I observed everything firsthand. Now, like I said, I was privileged to have listened to Professor Okonna. And the purpose of this interaction being to verify some of the things being said about His Excellency Mr. P2B, I wish to confirm that substantially what Professor Okonna said during her outing is true and correct. I, without hesitation, confirm that. I will, however, in the course of this interaction, like to address in further confirmation and validation of what you already know, some specific areas regarding the administration of Mr. P2B. Let me also say that I never knew or met Mr. P2B one-on-one until after the 2003 governorship election in Anambra State, which he won, but some other person was declared. It was at the commencement of the election petition with respect to that election that I met Mr. P2B one-on-one for the very first time. And I participated as part of his legal team in that exercise. You will recall that at the beginning of campaigns for that election, Mr. P2B had posed a rhetorical question. Are we cursed? or are we the cause? In those days, we watched the campaign and saw Mr. P2B just as we saw the other candidates who were involved and campaigning for the election. But one thing that was remarkable was that Mr. P2B was very dogged in his campaign and traversed all the nooks and corners and crannies of Anambra State. From what we were reading, I didn't have one-on-one contact with him all this time. During the election itself, we all came out to vote, and the people of Anambra State voted massively for him. Unfortunately, when the result was announced, some other person was declared the winner of that election. Mr. P2B proceeded to the election petition tribunal. I was privileged to have been one of the lawyers that did that matter for him. And I would like to say at this stage that that petition, that election petition, was not fought and won on technical grounds. Rather, it was fought and won on the ground that Mr. P2B hold the majority of lawful votes cast at that election. In the course of that trial, we called witnesses from all over the state. We tendered election results given to his party agents from all across the state. And I must say that it was beyond belief that Mr. P2B was so meticulous that he was able to collect the results issued to his party agents from all over the state. And that made the prosecution of that petition very, very easy for us, if I may say so. We also invited a handwriting expert to testify. And this handwriting expert was able to convince the tribunal that the results on the basis of which the final declaration was made were forged, in the sense that they were written by the same set of people. You know, in an election, a presiding officer mans a polling unit, and for the results of every polling unit, there must be a separate presiding officer. But we were able to demonstrate in some cases that in up to 100 polling units or more, one person wrote all the results. So the tribunal was inundated with evidence, which we were able to provide because Mr. P2B was very meticulous in the prosecution of that election. Our legal team was led by Dr. Onyechi Ibazu, SAN, and comprised mainly of legal practitioners based in Onitsha. Without sounding immodest, I think we did a good job. After Mr. P2B was sworn in and he assumed office, he said that he would not go outside the lawyers in his legal team to appoint an attorney general. And that was how I came into the picture. And the day he invited me to offer me this job, he also told me that, look, Mr. Afuba, I have never been in government at the state level before. You have been there and you have garnered some experience. That experience we will also like to use in the course of this government. So that was how I joined the team. Now, within 6 to 7 months, after Mr. Peter Obi was sworn in, the Anambra State House of Assembly, which was made up mainly of legislators from the PDP, that's the People's Democratic Party, whereas Mr. Peter Obi belonged to the All Progressives Grand Alliance, that is APGA. Let me use the word, they ganged up and started an impeachment process, which eventually culminated in the impeachment of Mr. Peter Obi. Now, when this happened, Mr. Peter Obi again invited back the same legal team, still headed by Dr. Njenje, to challenge the impeachment in court. I was not part of that team because as at then, I was already the Attorney General of Anambra State. Again, they went to court, and the impeachment which the House did was, as you have heard severally, both from Mr. Peter Obi and from other sources, it was alleged that he was in breach of the Constitution, which amounted to gross misconduct. But the allegations contained in the impeachment notice did not disclose any infraction of the Constitution, as far as I am concerned. And furthermore, in the course of challenging that impeachment, the fact emerged that in the course of prosecuting the impeachment itself, the members of the House did not comply with mandatory provision of the Constitution, which says that you must serve the impeachment notice on the person which you seek to impeach. No impeachment notice was served on him. And the legal team was able to demonstrate that before the courts. At the end of the day, the impeachment again was nullified, and Mr. Peter Obi came back to resume office as the governor of Anambra State. Now, why this impeachment? After this impeachment, and while the court process was on, I was in contact. I was in close contact with Mr. Peter Obi. And one day, I asked him, I said, Your Excellency, if you come back as governor of Anambra State, those things which the members of the House said you did that led to your impeachment, would you do them again? And he looked me in the eyes and said, Mr. Afuba, I will. That goes to show the character of Mr. Peter Obi. In fact, my respect for him grew that day. He did come back, and he did not change. Rather than change, he continued more in that direction of prudence, of abhorring corruption, of saving money for the states. Because these were the things the members of the House were unhappy with, that he refused to play ball. Then, after that, you know, the Constitution of Nigeria provides that a governor is entitled to a tenure of 4 years, commencing from the date he is sworn in as a governor of the state. Now, whereas the election took place in 2003, Mr. Peter Obi was not sworn in until 2006. In 2007, the Independent National Electoral Commission, that is INEC, purported to conduct election for the office of governor of Anambra State. Of course, Mr. Peter Obi declined to participate in that election, but rather went to court to contest that his tenure, which commenced in 2006, would not lapse until 2010, and therefore that there was no vacancy under the Constitution for the office of governor of Anambra State in 2007 when INEC purported to conduct an election. Election was done, somebody was purportedly sworn in, and indeed assumed office while we were in court. We fought this case up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court agreed completely with us that the tenure of 4 years commences from the date the person is sworn in, and in the case of Mr. Peter Obi, he was sworn in sometime in March 2006, and therefore that his tenure will not expire until March 2010. Consequently, that there was no vacancy in the office of governor of Anambra State, and that the election conducted by INEC was unconstitutional. That was how Mr. Peter Obi came back to office of governor. So you will see that consistently, this is a man who believes in the rule of law, who believes in the efficacy of the courts, and the judiciary did not disappoint him. He did not resort to any other option other than the courts. While the election matter was in court, I must tell you that all manner of pressure was brought on him to drop the petition. But he said no. All manner of offers were made to him, but he said no, that he wasn't interested in all those things, that the people of Anambra State gave him their mandate to be their governor, and that it was not in his place to betray that mandate. That is the character of the man we are talking about. Now, Professor Okonna spoke on what was done towards the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals. But I want to say that that was indeed possible because of the strategy which Mr. Peter Obi brought on the table for running his government. And that is the Anambra Integrated Development Strategy. That was a concept that enabled us as a government to plan what to do for the people, which most of the time was demand-driven. We interacted and interfaced with the people and heard from them with respect to their areas of need. It also enabled us to budget according to the resources of the state, to implement that budget, to monitor the implementation, and ensure that there was delivery. The Anambra Integrated Development Strategy did not concentrate on any particular sector or sectors, but it spread across all the sectors. And initially, people were saying, look, what you people are doing cannot work. Just pick 1, 2, or 3 areas, concentrate on them, and achieve something in those areas. When another person comes, another government comes, that government can take up some other areas. But Mr. Peter Obi said no, that the development must be integrated. Another device which Mr. Peter Obi brought on the table while we were in government was what he called the work plan. Now, you see, in the course of the budget is based on projection of revenue, which may or may not be realized. But then, based on what is actually available, the Executive Council will develop from time to time what we call a work plan, which enabled us to implement projects based on priority. So, for the government to undertake any project, one, it must be budgeted for, and two, it must have been captured in the work plan. And that made the delivery of government very effective, as it were. Now, let me also talk briefly about the judiciary. Maybe, perhaps, because Mr. Peter Obi believes so much in the rule of law, as soon as he assumed office, he noticed that the monthly overhead of Anambra State Judiciary, that is the money used to run the entire judiciary in the state every month, was a paltry 200,000 naira. 200,000 naira. You won't believe it. Because of that, the judiciary was in total decay and dilapidation. In all aspects, the first thing Mr. Peter Obi did was to immediately increase the overhead of the state judiciary from 200,000 naira a month to 10 million naira a month. With that, massive rehabilitation in terms of overhead costs was able to commence. The judiciary was then able to buy stationaries. The judiciary was able to buy fuel. The judiciary was able to maintain vehicles. The judiciary was able to pay for other transport elements, and so on. Before then, nothing worked. Apart from that, the governor also made massive infrastructural development in the judiciary. New court halls were built and equipped. And then if you come to the other aspect, that is the Ministry of Justice, it also suffered a lot of neglect. We had a Ministry of Justice building, a building of 4 floors, massive, at Onitsha, which was started and abandoned for a period of over 19 years. As soon as I brought this to the attention of the governor, it was captured in the budget, and that complex was completed. And law officers who now have good work environment where to work. The same thing with the Ministry of Justice building at Aguata. A brand new structure was built, and another one was built at Newi. A new High Court complex was built at Ogidi, and residential quarters for judges were built at Onitsha. Before then, our judges were using dilapidated cars. This Mr. Peter Obi will not allow. So brand new vehicles were provided not only for honorable judges, but also for magistrates of all grades. This had never happened in the history of Anambra State until then. Now, I also would like to talk very briefly on the issue of security. Professor Kona mentioned this aspect, but I'd like to say in specific terms that during the administration of Mr. Peter Obi, over 600 patrol vehicles were provided for the police, for the army, for the navy, and even for the community vigilante services. We have 177 communities in Anambra State, and Mr. Peter Obi provided security vehicles for each and every one of them. And for larger communities like Onitsha, Ubosi, and a few others, they got 2 or 3. That helped a great deal to check the security situation in the state. And then one of the greatest problems we had then was that the army barracks in Onitsha was not fenced. And so a lot of criminals will do all sorts of things. And once you chase them, they will vamoose into the army barracks. The army commander was not comfortable with that, and the state government was not comfortable with that. So in order to stem that, the state government had to fence the entire army barracks, which is a massive area of land. That was done. The thing got to a stage that criminals had to run away. When Mr. Peter Obi took over office, that was in 2006. And I recall clearly, that was when the 2006 National Census exercise was going on. There was a group called MASOB. And they said that census will not take place in Biafra land. They attacked census officials in Anambra State, poured acid on some of them, and in fact, in some areas of Onitsha, they took over. If they get to your premises, they will impose a new rent for the tenants and will be collecting part of it. There was a near total breakdown of law and order. Mr. Peter Obi will not have any of such. There is an island that borders the River Niger, borders the River Niger and Onitsha, which they call Njenje Island. That was where they were operating from. And Mr. Peter Obi had to mobilize the security forces, and they cleared them. And there was relative quiet in Anambra State. He also went to the extent of issuing an executive order under the Criminal Code of Anambra State to declare MASOB an illegal organization. So much was done in the area of security. Now, in education, I want to mention education especially because it's like Mr. Peter Obi is intoxicated when it comes to education, and he will not spare anything to ensure that education is well attended to. In this respect, let me just give a few highlights in specific terms. Under Mr. Peter Obi, 35,000 laptops were procured for 450 schools in Anambra State. These 450 schools were equipped with Microsoft Academy internet connectivity, and each of them provided with generators to power the laptops. Still under education, he built and rehabilitated over 200 science laboratories in secondary schools. He distributed 750 vehicles, school buses, to schools in Anambra State. And he did not discriminate between government schools and mission schools, and in some cases, even private schools. His attitude is that these are our children. And if those in public schools enjoy some facilities from government, that there is no reason why those who are not in private schools should not be extended the same patronage. Now, we saw a situation where students will leave the school premises in search of water. And so there was provision for boreholes to provide water for secondary schools in 300 schools. He also constructed and renovated over 1,500 classroom blocks. With respect to tertiary education, he transformed the Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu University, both at the Uli campus and at the Ibariam campus. He also built so many structures at Nwafọ Orizu College of Education, Nsugbe. The list goes on and on and on. In terms of personal interaction, Mr. Peter Obi spent a great chunk of his working time visiting secondary schools and interacting with students. He also developed a means where some facilities, instead of awarding contracts for the provision of some facilities, he would give the money to the principal and the Parents Teachers Association jointly to manage and provide those facilities. And it worked. It was only in one or two places that reports were received of mismanagement of such funds. So when it comes to education, the investment that was made in education brought Anambra State's position in school starts from the 26th position to the first position. So that was a monumental achievement. And what is more, even now that he has left office, Mr. Peter Obi still goes around. Before this campaign started, before he thought of vying for presidency, even before he thought of vying as a vice president, you will see Mr. Peter Obi going around visiting schools and supporting them from his personal resources, not only in Anambra State, not only in the Southeast, but he went to as far away as Sokoto State to donate money to schools. That is the passion which Mr. Peter Obi has for education. I will now briefly speak, and finally, before I leave the area of education, I'm sure we remember that he returned schools to the missions and other private owners, despite the stiff opposition of the NUT. One thing with Mr. Peter Obi that is remarkable is that if he believes in what is right, he is prepared to stand alone and face the entire crowd and insist on his position once he believes that what he is doing is right. He will always tell us that governance is about giving service to the people, that it is not about, that it is not a popularity contest. So what he was doing was what will touch the lives of the people and not necessarily what will make him popular as a governor. That was his philosophy, and he stood by it. So if you move around Anambra State, you'll find that the programs of the government was targeted more at the people than any other thing. So in the health sector, Mr. Peter Obi also did so much. I don't know, I'm looking at the time, but I still have so much to say by way of introductory speech. So let me just say that in the health sector, he partnered with the mission hospitals and gave them massive support in terms of funding. And if you go to any of those mission hospitals today, you will see the evidence. He also invested in primary health care in primary health institutions spread all over the local governments and the communities in the state. I don't think I need to say anything about roads. This one actually speaks for itself. At a time, people said that if you come to Anambra State and you apply on any bad road, that must be a federal road, because virtually all the state roads were rehabilitated. And in doing this, he established the State Road Maintenance Agency and equipped them with the result that as failures on the roads occur, so are they being rehabilitated. It was a wonderful era in Anambra State. Of course, Professor Okonna talked a lot about the emergency management attitude. But let's provision of electricity. You know, one thing we complain that what we generate in Nigeria, about 4,000 megawatts, is not sufficient. But what is more painful is that even that 4,000 megawatts, we are not able to distribute. We are not able to distribute. So, in tackling that problem, during the tenure of Mr. Peter Obi, over 500 transformers were procured, distributed, installed, and energized in different communities in Anambra State. We also I think I'll begin to round off, but before I do that, even though there are so many other things I wanted to say, but I'm being conscious of time. But before I do that, I want to mention one program which Mr. Peter Obi started and which showed the human nature of Mr. Peter Obi. He collected statistics of old people who were 70 years and above in Anambra State and who had no support. Not people whose children are very rich, or people who had made money, but the poor of the poor in that age bracket. And he was paying them 5,000 naira every month. And he did that diligently and consistently until he left office. Unfortunately, that program was not continued. Then again, in order to encourage education, he established another program that whoever made a first class in any university, both within Nigeria and outside, but once you are an indigene of Anambra State, once you make first class, the state government pays you 1 million naira. And that made our students in higher institutions to take their studies very, very seriously, because those who felt they could make first class did not want to miss it. Again, when Mr. Peter Obi left office, unfortunately, that program could not continue. Finally, I am mindful of the fact that Mr. Peter Obi has been criticized on account of not having a successful and viable succession program. Let me say this. Mr. Peter Obi is a human being. And if he got everything he did 100% correct, then he would no longer be a human being. But he is. So this is one area where we that worked with him may not be so proud to talk about. But Mr. Peter Obi, being who he is, has gone before the people of Anambra State. And he said to them, I have sinned. I have committed an error. I ask for your forgiveness. That was why at the end of the first tenure of his successor, he campaigned for another candidate. He campaigned for another candidate. And what he told the people of Anambra State is that if you commit an error or if you commit a sin, that you need to ask for pardon, but that it doesn't end there. That you also need to make visible and strong effort at restitution. And it was in the bid to make restitution that he sought to support the people of Anambra State to have a better governor. Well, you know, in our climb here, the power of incumbency is very strong. And it is in only very rare cases that you can uproot an incumbent governor who is going for re-election. But he did admit, and he went round to Anambra people, and he told them, yes, we made an error of human judgment. Now we want to correct it. Now, having said this, I would now like to end my introductory speech by just taking and sharing with you a few testimonies of eminent people, of eminent institutions about Mr. Peter Obi. I'll start with the European Union. The European Union ambassador to Nigeria, David McRae, said, and I quote, European Union has always emphasized on proper management of money. That's why it's important to have people of high integrity like Peter Obi, close of quotes. Now, the DFID country representative, Dr. Richard Montgomery, said this about Peter Obi, and I quote, Governor Obi's commendable performance in office led us to classify his government as reformist. Now, the World Bank country director, Mr. Omo Ruhai, had this to say, I quote, Governor Obi is an exceptional leader and very prudent in financial management. And I believe his interest is to better the lots of his people, which to my mind is very remarkable. Now, I'll now take some indigenous people, notable indigenous people in Anambra State. The first is Emeka Anyaoku, Chief Emeka Anyaoku, who was a former Secretary General of the Commonwealth. He said, and I quote, I thank His Excellency Governor Peter Obi for the enviable feats he has recorded through ANITs, through which he is rapidly transforming all parts of the state and is entrenching decency and transparency in governance. Close of quotes. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the controversy between Mr. Peter Obi and Reverend Father Mbaka?
Are you there, sir?
I think maybe he has a call. Let's give him some time to come back. Mostly,
Okay,
yeah. It happened.
There was also this issue that Peter Obi discriminated against the Northerners and chased them away from Anambra State. During that misunderstanding, the Sultan of Sokoto intervened and visited Anambra State. And this was what he said about Mr. Peter Obi. He said, Mr. Peter Obi is a visionary leader. His sustained commitment to the socio-economic transformation of the state remains a source of hope and strength for all of us. His energy and wisdom, his tolerance, and his accommodation, and his people-centered development programs are being appreciated even beyond the borders of Anambra State. So whatever you were told about Mr. Peter Obi not being accommodating, you have now heard from the Sultan of Sokoto himself. And then finally, I will quote the former president of Anambra State, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan. This is what he said about Peter Obi. Governor Obi is one governor I have tremendous respect for. Besides being good-natured, I have sat at tables with him, and I am impressed by the quality of his contributions at meetings. Close of quotes. So what I have said so far is by way of an introductory speech. I was not able to exhaust what I intended to say. I hope some of them will now come up during the question and answer session. Once more, I thank the conveners of this interaction. And like I said before, I'm very happy to be here. I will take any manner of questions, whether it is complimentary, whether it is commending, and whether it is offensive. I do not mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I mean, you don't know how happy we are to have you on the space today. Thank you so much for all you have said. I mean, you've said so many things that we didn't even know about. You've exposed us to so many truths. If a lot of people know this, I'm telling you that the movement will be bigger, bigger, bigger. But like Professor Stella Kunaya said, Mr. Obi don't like to blow his trumpet. She said he will tell you, don't shout this. Let people see the work and comment. So I mean, it is not a surprise that we are hearing a lot of things that he did that we never even knew he did. Well, we're going to take questions now. But before we take questions, I'd like to say, Mark, welcome, and thank you for being here, sir. You have also been doing a lot for this movement. Magnific dude. Welcome. Thank you. We're going to start taking speakers now. But before we start giving the mic for people to speak, I would like us to please follow Pels, who's the host. Follow Mr. Peter. Okay. Mr. Uncle, how do I put it? I want to call you Daddy, that Peter Afuba, because I apportion that much respect to you, sir. SAN. Let's follow him. Let's follow. Let's follow myself and Magnific Dude, if you will. Let's do this. Thank you very much, guys. Okay, we're going to tag 2 minutes to each speakers, and I will be setting up my timer here. We have more than enough people requesting the mic to speak, and we have about 1,000, close to 1,040 people here, 1,140 people here, and more than the fraction of them are requesting the mic to speak. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes. As soon as it is 2 minutes, you have opportunity to ask only 2 questions. You can take 1 question per minute. And if somebody has your question, please just do us a favor and drop the mic or just go, because they've already asked your questions. Okay, thank you very, very much. Okay, let's start now by giving okay, Jack, you're here. Thank you very much for being here. Jack, you have 2 minutes. You have the mic now. Please speak.
Okay, thank you so much. Good afternoon, Barrister, Barrister, for your time. And so just very quickly, I'd like to ask, sir, I'm aware that you served as the Attorney General under Peter's regime. So my question to you is, what were the improvements apart from the overhead? I'm talking of laws now, right? What were the improvements? What laws were His Excellency able to enact, during his regime using via the office of? So what laws affected the lives of Anambarians? Because I'm from Anambra, so I'd like to know those laws that he passed under your watch. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I hope you're hearing me.
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Thank you. First of all, we did some work with respect to the magistrates' court rules of Anambra State and also the administration of criminal justice law of Anambra State. That law modified the processes for police arrest, investigation, and the prosecution of persons for criminal offenses. And it was geared towards fast-tracking the pace or the timeline spent for criminal prosecution. Then secondly, the government of P2B brought back the customary court of appeal in Anambra State by bringing an executive bill to the State House of Assembly to make provision for the customary court of appeal. Now, the customary court of appeal hears appeals from customary courts. It hears appeals from customary courts, which hitherto went to the High Court that was already over congested. And what is more, we didn't have this customary court of appeal, but the funding of the customary court of appeal in all the states in the federation is by the National Judicial Council, by the federal government. So we felt we were losing a lot of valuable service in that sector. And the state government brought in the customary court of appeal. I can tell you most regrettably that that court has since after P2B left office been abolished in Anambra State for reasons best known to them. It's still functional in many other states of the federation. Then also, this one may not be an issue of, okay, let me also go to the revision of the laws of Anambra State. In the course of our administration, we engaged a law review to do a review of the laws of Anambra State which was last done in 1991. The scope in terms of time of that contract was still running when we left government. Surprisingly, what they did with it, only the succeeding government can explain. Then one area in the administration of criminal justice is the congestion of the prison, that is the correctional center, where you have so much number of persons awaiting trial. We went out of our way to set up task force, essentially for the purpose of decongesting the correctional center by facilitating the speed at which case files were processed in the Ministry of Justice and information filed in the court where there is a prima facie case and where there is none. The defendant will be discharged and he regains his freedom. Mr. Peter Obi funded this process aggressively. And so there were so many other things that we did in the justice sector. But these are just some I want to mention for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for that reply. Jack, I hope that answered the question. Thank you very much. Next on my list, I can see is Njenje of the Good Life. Njenje, how are you today?
I'm fine, Bishop. It's been a while. Hi,
It's
Pearl.
been a while, my dear.
Magnifico.
You okay? We'll catch up later. Just you have 2 minutes to ask
Okay, good afternoon to
Barrister
you,
your
sir.
question.
Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you for honoring us, and thank you for giving us more insight about this man that gives us a lot of hope. I just want to say something. You touched on what I wanted to say earlier, but I just want to ask because as much as I applaud him for so many things that he's done, I have a problem with that continuity, because the person that took after him, I think he literally messed up a lot of things that he did. So what do you think that he will do when, I say when, not if, when he becomes the president? Because I want a Nigeria where we can have that continuity of the good work that he's going to do, like he did when he was governor. I want that continuity. So do you see him taking that forward? Well, you said something about he felt remorse at some point that yeah, there were certain things that he was supposed to do, but he didn't do, especially with the continuity. But do you think that there are going to be laws that he would put in place, like making sure that the National Assembly will pass certain laws? Because I expected that maybe at the state level, there would have been laws to checkmate corruption because he upholds it a lot. And with it, I don't know, I might not be correct, but I just see from my perspective that maybe there would have been continuity for a lot of these things. For instance, like the project that you said he he was giving 5,000 naira to the less privileged, or even those that were not uh, uh, liable for pension. Don't you think that all of these things they would have been documented as a law so that successive governments would know that this is what is and what should be done? At least they are guided by the law. You see him doing better, taking from this shortcomings in his previous government or his previous position as a governor to consolidate on that so that he can bring out that depth that he could not see in that aspect when he was governor. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask.
Hello, sir. He dropped to the listener.
Yeah, having
Sir.
a connectivity problem.
Yeah. Okay. Um, Let us hold while Pels try to get Daddy back as a speaker. Thank you very much. Please, just wait, guys. Kindly wait. He will be back. Njenje, thank you for that question. I hope you heard, and if you did not hear, then let me leave Njenje here while we get um, Barrister Peter back. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about our principal, Mr. Peter Obi. I was watching.
Sorry to
Okay, go
interject,
ahead.
Bishop. Can you find him? Because I just cannot see him right now here. I don't know if you want to take a look with me.
I think he left. I could see him before in the listener session. I think he left, so he should just come back.
Okay, let me reach out to him. I'll be right back.
You know what? We can just go to the guest thing and type his name, and if it's somewhere down there, it pops up. Right, it brings him out right out. So
Yeah,
if you go,
I did that. I can't find him. I just wanted to be sure. That's why I told you.
Just reach out to him, Pels. Reach out to him, and then let's see. Then you get back to us via DMs. Let's know what is happening. So, I mean, out of those people in the speaker session, let's talk about what happened yesterday with Mr. Peter Obi. If you want to say something about his interview yesterday with Deolu, or you want to talk about the his town hall meeting yesterday in America, you can raise your hand. I believe everyone should put down their hands now until that Peter comes, and let's talk about our principal. Please put down your hands if you know you want to talk about Mr. Peter Obi yesterday's speech. Then you can keep your hand raised up. So by raise of hand, let's call Omega XD. What's up, bro?
Yeah,
Omega.
Sorry, Bishop. We have him back here, so we might just want to continue.
Okay, he's back. So sorry, Omega. Okay, Angie, you can ask him your question now. So he's back. He can listen to you. He can hear you. Ask your question again so he can answer. Go ahead, Angie.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for joining us and giving us a lot.
Angie, 1 second. He's still requesting the mic, so we have to drop somebody to bring him up. So give me 1 second.
So please, if you are dropped from the listener section, from the speaker section, don't worry. Keep requesting the mic. We're going to bring you up again. We just want that Peter SAN to be able to connect, and because he's the reason why. Oh my God, he dropped again. I think he is having some network issues. Okay.
Bishop, I think I already added him on. Let's see. Let's give it a minute to sync.
Okay. So let's do we wait, or do we go with what we wanted to do before?
Let's wait.
Yes. We can hear you loud and clear now. Angel, please go ahead and ask your question. Daddy is here, he can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know what caused that hitch, but I'm happy to be back. Now, what I was saying is that Mr. Peter Obi will certainly not make that type of mistake again, because intelligent people learn from experience, and I have no doubt that he is one of them. Now, the other aspect of the question is why, being somebody that abhors corruption, why measures were not put in place to ensure that certain things were not done, even after he had left. Now, you know, the way Nigeria is structured, the enforcement of law is virtually in the hands of the federal agencies. The police is federal. ICPC, that is the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission, is federal. The EFCC, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, is federal, and so on. So they manage that aspect of our public life. Even for a state attorney general to prosecute for an offense, you find that the police must first conduct an investigation. And it is on the basis of the investigation conducted by the police that you prosecute. Where the police does not conduct investigation, there is hardly little or nothing the state government or the state governor could do. Then again, linked to your question or relating to your question is, and it goes back to the previous question I was asked, some of the laws we did. You know, Mr. P2B will always talk about saving, saving, saving. We enacted a law of the state which made it mandatory for a specific percentage of the state's revenue to be saved, and which prescribed the circumstances and put in place stringent conditions for touching that savings. But I mean, a new government comes in and makes a new law and then goes on with what it wants to do. So these are some of the challenges. But then I know that when P2B becomes the president of this country, God willing, some of these things will be much more easier to handle and institutionalize, and it will have effect in the entire federation. And that is what we all pray for.
Thank you very much, sir. NG, I don't know if that was a question to your, if that was the answer to your question. Okay, thank you very much, NG.
Okay, I don't know if I can, well, I don't know. I don't know if it's appropriate for me to, because I still seek a bit of light. He knows the law better than I do, but I just want to ask. For instance, for the security, we have states that have enacted laws to prohibit open grazing. So why is it that in this case of making laws to checkmate corruption and embezzlement of funds, why is this different? I don't know if you can explain that for me, so that I know that even in the states, even with the open grazing law, it's still kind of limited, but at least there is a law. So I don't know if you can just throw more light on that.
Yes, I can explain that very well. You know, open grazing is a peculiar thing. When you come to corruption, the problem with corruption is not absence of legislation. As a matter of fact, if you ask me, we have more than enough legislations to check corruption. If you go to the criminal code of every state, there are legislations against corruption. If you go to the EFCC Act, there are provisions against corruption. If you go to the ICPC Act, there are provisions against corruption. Some of these legislations have been duplicated. So the problem really is not absence of legislation. The problem is implementation of the provisions of those legislations. And that was why I told you that the implementation, as far as criminality is concerned, of which corruption is part and parcel of, lies with the law enforcement agencies, all of which are federal government agencies. I'll give you another example. We enacted a law on fraudulent practices on land in Anambra State during the tenure of Mr. P2B. What that law sought to do was to prohibit people who by any means inhibit development on land. We have a peculiar situation where youths in various communities form what they call youth organizations. And then somebody comes in with a development project, wants to build a small industry or wants to build a commercial enterprise, and then the youth will swoop on him and tell him how much he has to do. If not, if he builds, they will knock it down. So this became a bit problematic because it was discouraging investment, and we had to come up with this legislation. But then, having come up with the legislation, the police will first of all have to arrest the persons who are violating the provisions of that law, investigate,
Is it just me or did we lose him right there?
Yeah, he'll be back. I think that's just a network glitch. Let's give it some time. He'll be back, I believe.
the Attorney General will not investigate. So that is the limitation.
We can hear you now, sir. Go ahead. Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir. Yeah, we can hear you, sir. We can hear you. Your network is bad, but we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Better. We can hear you now.
Okay. So the point I was
Oh my gosh, what's going on here? Oh dear. Sorry everyone. Of course, that's absolutely beyond our control. So we just have to wait a little bit more. Bishop, do you want to keep on the conversation, or you just want us to wait for him to come back?
Miss Fells, I would say send him a DM and let him know. Okay, it's dropped, so we have to tell you.
Yeah.
So I send him a DM.
Yeah, Pels will do that. Pels will send him a DM and try to get him back on here. But yeah, Omega X, you wanted to say something about Mr. Peter Obi, yesterday's outing? Please, you have to.
One second, guys. Please, 1 second. My doing good. I know I dropped you. As soon as there's an opening, I'll bring you back up. So please be patient with us, okay? Thank you. I just want you to know I dropped you and I'll bring you back up as soon as there's a space up. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Pels. Thank you, Bishop, Magnifico, and everybody listening. I actually wanted to ask him a question. So I didn't want to talk about the interview. I was trying to ask him a question actually.
Okay, you can then mute your mic. I want someone who can talk about the outing yesterday. If you want to talk about what Mr. Omega, okay, you're raising your hand again.
No, I mean when he's back, actually.
Oh, okay, when he's back. Okay. So any body want to talk about the outing yesterday? Let's keep the conversation going. Ice, what's up, bro? Ice, what's up?
No, I want to ask a question to him, so I would wait when it comes online.
Okay, all right.
Okay, I could talk. I could talk something about it. Yeah, I watched him in California, PO, when he got there, and Dr. Ope and Akin actually they were spacing, so we had the chance to listen to the whole thing. But what baffles me is, man, I I know I'm a young man, but I think Peter Obi is younger than I am. To be honest with you guys, because the way he crisscrosses this place, this continent, I mean, this world, as a matter of fact. Yesterday it was in Toronto. The previous day was where in Germany. And when think about it, before he got to Germany, so I just and the man is so energetic. He's not tired. He does not look. And I want to ask him, do you sleep? I know we try to deprive ourselves of sleep to do all what we're doing, but come on. He was looking so rejuvenated from his voice. I can tell the man does not look, he does not sound tired. They were asking him questions and he was answering. He was telling the people in California that look, um, he promised that by 2027, diaspora voting would be something of a past in Nigerian politics, that he would make sure he makes it happen. You know, he talked about why he does not want office of a first lady. You know, that he's here to serve and not to apportion
Okay,
office and stuff like that. You
sorry
know,
to interject you, Mark. He is right here, but for some reason we as co-hosts are not finding him. I just got off the phone with him now. So
okay, I
Mark,
could see
okay,
him.
yeah, I can see him now. Yeah.
I could see him. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have to bring somebody down again to bring him
No,
back up.
don't worry
So
about that. I'm bringing him up.
okay, go ahead.
And Nana Sani Kazare, good to see you here, ma'am. The spokesperson for Peter Obi campaign. Really good to have you here, ma. Welcome.
Thank you very much, sir. Welcome back. Welcome back, sir. Welcome back. And please, as we are announcing these names, okay, Nana, Sani, Kazare, spokesperson for Peter Obi campaign. We have Barrister Peter A. Afuba, who was the Minister of Justice or Honorable Commissioner of Justice, and Attorney General for our principal, Mr. Peter Obi, when he was in office. We have like Pearl, myself, Magnific Dude. Please, massive following. We are obedient and we host spaces like this every week. Every week we have people who will come and talk to us about our principles. So how do you get these notifications? By following us, following us, following us. Thank you very much, sir. Let us take okay, Omega X. Please ask your question. That is here now.
All right. Welcome back, sir. Thank you for the
Mhm.
privilege to ask this question. Sir, okay, I wanted to ask, on the P2B, could you please help us highlight one or two major infrastructure that P2B built under its government?
Well, there are quite a number of them. If you come to road infrastructure, he dualized. He built a 6-lane road from the bridgehead at Onisha right down to the Onisha toll gate. And that includes a flyover at Mpo, at the new spare parts market, Mpo. He did that. He built 2 stadia at the same time in Onisha, mini stadia, one at Onisha North, the other one at Onisha South. He built the state secretariat complex, 2 mighty buildings that accommodates the ministries in the state government in one area. And that made it easy for the ministries to interface and government business to go on smoothly. Before then, the ministries were scattered in different parts of the states. Then he built, there is a bridge which we call Odo Bridge at Urumba Urumba North local government area, which connected two communities that leads to Amopala in Urumba local government area. That was a very long bridge. And then, like I said, there are massive infrastructures, especially in the area of road infrastructure. There is no part of Anambra State that did not benefit from the road infrastructure built by Mr. Peter Obi as governor of Anambra State. There are quite a number of them. If perhaps you are thinking of what you call a signature project, Peter Obi will rather do what will touch more the lives of the people of Anambra State than what will make him popular as a governor. Like I said before, for him, governance is not a popularity contest, but delivering the needed service to the people of the states.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. We're grateful for that answer. Omega XC, hope that answers the question. So I'm going to take our mommy now, Nana Sani Kazare in Apanama as well. Welcome to this space. She's a member person for Obidati campaign team, and wants to hear her voice. And if she has any question for the barrister, or she has any question for the house, want to hear. Mommy Nana, you have the mic now. Go ahead and speak. But you can unmute your mic and speak now. Nana Sani Zakari.
Kazori.
Sorry, Kazori Kiamkori.
Good afternoon. I just had to walk out because I wasn't expecting anyone to call my name. I just thought I could listen.
Sorry, I can hardly hear you.
Hello.
Sorry, I can hardly
Can you hear me
you.
now?
Can you hear me, sir?
Hello.
Yes.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
The reason I'm talking in very hushed tones is because I actually had to leave a meeting. I didn't know that I was going to be asked to speak, so I just plugged in my ear and I was listening in. So I would have to just go off now. So I'll be handing over the mic, but I'm still listening in, please. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ma. Thank you so very much. Nana, if you don't mind following me and Pels, maybe would like to bring you up here one day to ask you questions about what's happening in the campaign of Mr. Peter Obi. I just followed you back to do us a lot of good if you follow myself and Pels, a magnific dude, so that when you are free, you can come and give us a few hours of your time to speak to us about what's happening in the campaign sector of Mr. Peter Obi. Thank you very much.
I'm following Pearls and I'll follow you. That's Bishop, yes?
Bishop, a magnific dude who is the third co-host, the second co-host, sorry.
I will do so. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's take Munachi. You've been here for the longest. Munachi, how are you?
I'm fine, Bishop. I'm fine. I'm very much fine. Udodi. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Good afternoon, barrister. I am so impressed in the information you are giving us. Some of these things, being it that I am son of the soil, I know I was on ground when Peter Obi was the governor of Anambra State, so I can, concur to most of the things you are saying. In fact, when you talked about buses, I know that my hometown received about 6 buses, and out of those 6 buses is only 2 that is a government school, and the rest are private schools and the mission-owned secondary school, including my alma mater. So I can confidently confirm that. And even in the computer of a thing and the generator of a thing. These are the things I personally have seen and the experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My question, I wanted to, limit my question in your area of office in the judiciary sector. So, and fortunately, one of the questions I wanted to ask, somebody else has answered it, asked it before. So the next question I wanted to ask is this: in the area of police brutality, then how did His Excellency Mr. P2B, handle some of these police cases? Because at a time in Anambra State, if you want to threaten somebody, you will tell the person that I will call SARS for you. So it becomes, the name SARS becomes in fact a havoc to most of us. Once you are dealing with somebody and somebody tells you that I will call SARS for you, you are in trouble. So how was His Excellency Mr. Peter will be able to deal with some of these police brutality? And again, if you go to most of the prisons, you will see people that committed little or no crime being imprisoned. And what did His Excellency did in Anambra State that helped, or in your ministry, help to facilitate their case? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. As the Attorney General of the state, I was privileged to sit in as a member of the State Security Council. In that council, we have the Commissioner of Police, we have the Army Commander in the state, we have the Director of the DSS. And when such issues come up, the much you can do, which the governor did consistently, was to draw the attention of the complaint to the head of the agency that is being accused, most of the time the police, and for the commissioner to deal with that. But you will again understand that if there are 100 infractions in the state, the ones that will get to the attention of the State Executive Council may not be more than 2 or 3. Because our people have this tendency of not taking their matter and pressing it to its logical conclusion. But the very few that came up to the attention of the governor, he will quickly intervene and call the Commissioner of Police to take care of the situation. What was the second aspect of your question?
Munachi, second
About
aspect.
What was the second aspect of your question? Yes, I get it. You were talking about people who commit very little offenses and are detained for a very long time. What did we do about it? If you were here at the beginning of this interaction, I did say that from time to time, we set up task force. Let me tell you what this task force does. For most of the people, or many of the people who are in detention, their case files are either with the police or with the Ministry of Justice. Now, because at the beginning, we had this paucity of facilities, we didn't have sufficient computers or typewriters that were in vogue when we even took up office, because there was shortage of staff, manpower. So what the task force does is to leave every other duty and concentrate on processing these case files. And I will always tell my law officers, look, every case file you see is a human being in detention. So don't treat it as a case file. Treat it as a human being who is entitled to his day in court. And we moved quite a number of these cases. Those that are to be prosecuted, Once you file the information, it will now be left for the court if the person is entitled to bail, to grant bail. But where the person is not entitled to bail, like in capital offenses in which bail is hardly granted, then the person remains in custody while the trial goes on. Now, there is another thing that is called prison visits, because this process I have told you will not capture all the situations. So there is what is called prison visits. From time to time, the chief judge of the state goes with the judges in a particular judicial division, with the magistrates, with the director of public prosecution, who is under the attorney general of the state, and they go to prison and they will go through the information relating to all the people that are in custody. The chief judge has the power to summarily discharge anybody in respect of which there is no justification for the person to remain in custody. Like you rightly said, you could have a situation where somebody has committed an offense or is accused of committing an offense, in respect of which, even if convicted, the maximum penalty is 12 months imprisonment. And the person's file is brought, and the chief judge says that the person has been in custody for 18 months. What is he still doing there? He has already served the term he would have served if he was convicted when he was detained. So such cases are immediately released. Then there is another aspect where the governor exercises his powers under the Constitution upon the advice of the State Advisory Council on Prerogative of Mercy to review the cases of inmates even after conviction, and in deserving cases, the governor will release them. So those things were being done, but then you have to be careful so that you don't release prematurely into the society somebody that will still constitute a problem to society. So you must maintain the delicate balance. I don't know whether that satisfies your question.
Yes, Munachi, I think it does. Thank you very much, sir, for that one. Let us take Ice. Ice, you have the mic. After Ice, then we can go to the doctor. Ice, go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much, Bishop, for the opportunity. Thank you, Pierre, and thank you, Barrister. My question is more like, there is this stuff about continuity of government that has been coming up in relation to Peter Obi tenure as a governor. So I feel, personally for me, I feel the outcome of the continuity of government does not necessarily depend on the outgoing governor, because I feel if a new government comes in, they have the right and the mandate to actually change a lot of the laws that has been set up by this present administration. And so if, for example, the new government comes in and decide to do what they want to do, everything that has been done by the previous administration can be brought to a halt. So personally for me, I think continuity of government actually depends more on we, the electorate, by doing a proper investigation on whom we are going to be voting for. So a situation whereby we don't carry out proper investigation about new government coming into play, and when they come in, they tend to actually abuse the office that has been set for them. So I feel personally, it's not really about what the present, it's not really about the outgoing administration, because when the new government comes in, they have the right and the mandate to utter so many laws that have been set up
Ice,
by
you
the
have 10
previous.
seconds more. Thank you very much.
Okay. that has been set up by the previous administration. So what I would like to know what you think about this, Barrister.
Well, yours is more like a comment than a question. And to some extent, I agree with you, because you'll find that the way governance is structured in Nigeria now, the governors are very powerful. And in most of the states, the governors virtually control the legislature, which ought to be independent and which also ought to check the executive. But you find that the reverse is the case. Rather, the governor is like an emperor. And so, no matter the laws we have put in place, a new governor who comes can easily reverse those legislations and bring up the legislations that will suit his purpose. To that extent, I agree with you. Now, having said that, I will also want to say that I agree with you that what is important is to look for somebody of integrity. You know, in our Nigerian environment, institutions are not strong. Institutions are not powerful. But the leaders are the people that are strong. So it becomes very, very critical that we must be careful the leaders we bring on board. And like it, take it or leave it. Again, in our system, the incumbent governor has a lot of influence in determining who succeeds him. He has a lot of influence in determining who succeeds him. So while the people have a duty to elect credible people, credible leaders, you will also agree with me that you can only elect somebody that has been nominated by the political party for an election. A situation where two or three criminals are the candidates for the parties vying for the election, what can the electorate do? So much as I agree with you that the electorate must be careful, it is also necessary that a good leader should also try to ensure that his successor will not mess up the good work he has done.
Thank you very much, sir. Ice, please kindly follow the co-host and follow the host and follow us. Please, if you're coming up here to speak, we always beg you to follow. So I won't have such good spaces next time. You can have the chance to know, have the chance to get a first-hand invites from the host. Thank you very much, sir. And Dr. Oluwaseyi, you have the mic now.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. And thank you very much, Barrister. Well, my question is a little bit of pragmatic kind of questions, and it's more.
Your voice is breaking. I can't hear you. Your voice is breaking. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Okay, Dr. Oluwaseyi, I'm going to take you down as a speaker. Fix your network and come back. Thank you very much. Let's take Gaza. Gaza, how are you? Gaza, are you there? Okay, I want to commend those of you who have taken out time to be here by this time of the day. Most of us are still working, but you take out time. Over 8,000 people are on the space. We understand we got over 2,000 people requesting to be here, but you know, so many people are working, and then you guys are still here. So we thank you very much. Please, Mr. Tony, please kindly help us mute your mic, because if we get interference from your mic, we would have a rowdy session. So please, so that we don't take you down as a speaker, help us mute your mic. God bless you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you. Gaza, are you here now?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, me on this. I'm very delighted to be here. My question is regards security. I want to ask how His Excellency Daobi plans to handle security, because as we know, Nigeria is a very complex state, and we have so many issues ranging from banditry, Boko Haram, kidnapping, and all of that, and even up to police brutality and harassment. I believe it is an issue that has not yet been addressed even after the NSAS protest. Just recently, last week, I was a victim of that. I was harassed by some policemen. So I'm really concerned about the security and how he plans to curb the issue of security in Nigeria.
Well, my understanding is that this interaction is aimed at further unveiling and putting on the public domain what P2B did as governor of Anambra State, so that the people will further and better understand who he is. As to what he will do if he wins election and becomes the president, I think one can only take a cue from what he has done in the past. And for me, knowing him the way I do, one thing P2B will definitely do is reform. He will reform the institutions so that they can work better. When he was governor of Anambra State, to a very large extent, he reformed the civil service of the state through the instrumentality of the head of service. He addressed the problems of the civil service and provided facilities for the civil service to perform better. And there was better productivity. So when you take the police as an institution, you find that there is so much to do in terms of reform. The facilities with which the police work is grossly inadequate. As governor of Anambra State, Mr. P2B purchased so many vehicles. He purchased communication gadgets. He even purchased armored personnel carriers for the police in the state. And he set up patrol teams, joint patrol teams, which included the police, the army, the navy, and so on, and funded them, provided vehicles, and provided money for operational expenses. So if he was able to do all this as a governor who does not have the police as his primary responsibility, I think we can anticipate what he will do to transform the security agencies in Nigeria so that they can approximate and compete with what the security agencies in the civilized world do. That is our expectation. And knowing Mr. P2B the way I do, I am confident that that is the way he will go.
Thank you very much, sir. Concrete.
And then let me also add that P2B is for competence. The people that will man these security agencies will be appointed based on competence. The appointments he made in Anambra State were based on competence. You do not qualify for appointment because you come from the same town or community with him or because both of you attended the same school. No, that is not Mr. Peter Obi. You must be able to have what it takes to deliver. And when all these are brought on board, I think the transformation will be tremendous. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Oluwaseyi, for coming back. But before we take you, let's take Atama DB. Atama, welcome.
Thank you, host, co-host, speakers, and listeners. It's good to be here again. And thank you, Barrister, for giving us the opportunity on this platform to interact with you. I said this when we had a session with Professor Stella, who was also a key part of the OB leadership for Anambra, in Anambra within those 8 years. I said that what we are doing is go and verify at advanced level. You know, it has become a slogan, part of our movement, you know, to go and verify. So when we're having somebody who was in the room where it happened for 8 years under OB in Anambra, we are doing advanced form of go and verify. So it's good to have you here, Barrister. You know, I want to draw your attention to one of the cases that the opposition used against OB. That's trying to link him up with IPOP. Those of us in the movement who know, we don't take that seriously. You know, we don't take that seriously, though. And that is why when one of them tried to link him up to IPOP the other time, we made a joke out of it. We made a fun out of it because we don't take it seriously. But having him here, I want to ask you this question because I know that Simon Ekpa, who is one of the IPOP guys in Finland, you know, is very critical of Obi, you know, and he thinks that whether Obi was against them or never tolerated any criminality coming from that part in the name of IPOP, he did not tolerate it while he was governor. As somebody in the Justice Ministry, as the former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice during that time, what will you say was the relationship between the governor and how he handled issues of agitation coming from IPOP at that time? Thank you.
Well, let me say this. As far as I can remember, IPOB was not a big issue when Mr. Peter Obi was governor of Anambra State. Rather, like I said earlier, what we had was a MASOB. That is a movement for the actualization of the sovereign state of Biafra. That was what we had. And we were not concerned one way or the other with their philosophy. What we were concerned with was the criminality they were visiting on the people of Anambra State. And that was what Mr. Peter Obi dealt with. For me, I mean, we have freedom of expression under the Constitution. And that freedom allows you to express your opinion within the bounds of the law. So, whatever is the philosophy of IPOB, once it is within the law, I don't think anybody, including Mr. Peter Obi, should have any issues with them. And likewise, however noble your ideology is, and you go outside the law, that is where there will be a problem. I see Mr. Peter Obi as somebody who believes in the rule of law. That belief in the rule of law includes that you are free to propagate your ideology, but you must do that within the confines of the law. So as long as anything is being done within the realms of the law, when I was Attorney General of Anambra State, I will not advise that such a person be proceeded against. But once you infringe the law, then the state will come in to stop it. If not, we will degenerate into a state of anarchy. And that is what will do no one any good. So for me, like I've said before, I believe Mr. Peter Obi will stand with the rule of law, respect for the Constitution, and respect for constituted authorities. He wants Nigeria to work. He wants to salvage the country for the benefit of every Nigerian, irrespective of creed or tribe. Mr. Peter Obi is not a tribalistic person. He doesn't believe in nepotism. What Mr. A is to him is what Mr. B is to him, irrespective of tribe, irrespective of religion, every Nigerian is entitled to be free. And I think we'll enjoy that freedom under Mr. Peter Obi. And then finally, you see some of these things, when allegations are made, for those allegations or for such allegation to be taken seriously, it must be substantiated. So if you say Mr. Peter Obi is against IPOB, where is the evidence? If you say he's promoting IPOB, where is the evidence? As far as I know, Mr. Peter Obi is for good governance. Thank you.
That is so satisfying. Just like when you're thirsty and then you take a cold cup of water, cold, and then it satisfies your soul. Thank you very much for that satisfying answer. We're very, very grateful, sir. Thank you very much. I don't know. I'd like to take a lady. Okay, let's take a Dr. Oluwaseyi before we take a lady, because I know the government of our principal Peter Obi is an inclusive government and want to reciprocate that on our spaces. So we'll take Dr. Oluwaseyi for 2 minutes. After Dr. Oluwaseyi, you are going to stream down or cut down the questions to one question for 1 minute, so we can have a lot of people who are requesting the mic speak. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Oluwaseyi.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, actually. My question is actually in response to a lot of propaganda by the opposition, and one of them is the in person of one Mr. James Nwafo and Awuzulu River. So I just wanted to shed some light on if by any chance there's any activities or any involvement, or how did the governor Peter Obi handle such activities in his own time? Because the truth is, many of us believe that these are propaganda. Many of us believe this is just a way of trying to discredit his competency and his capability. But it will be very, 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 very better for us to hear from somebody like you, who happen to be custodian of the law in the state during his time. If there is any chance there is a relationship between his government with that James Nwafio or Awuzulu River or so. That's one. And second question is
with what? With what? I didn't quite get.
I cannot pronounce the river. It's Awuzuzu or James Nwafo, one of the notorious.
Okay. Go on.
I know a lot of people want to be used to attribute that to him, but I know it's all propaganda. And the last question is just: is there any specific measures put in place that should show that Mr. Peter Obi was able to curb corruption? Because I know that some of the, and one of the propaganda is when Obiano was saying that Mr. Peter Obi left about 127 billion debt. All these things, people are using it as a way of trying to discredit his frugality in management of fund. I want to know whether there's any iota of truth in this kind of debt they are talking about or not. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. I think your first question had to do with the time corpses were found on in a river floating between Enugu and the Anambra state boundary. That raised a lot of concern, and to the extent that a committee of the Senate had to come down to Anambra state to conduct investigation. And at the end of the entire thing, there was no way that Anambra state government was linked to that incident at all. Anambra state government was never indicted after all the investigation. That is one. Then two, on the issue of curbing corruption. You see, let me tell you, my brother, our people, when I say our people, I mean the average Nigerian who is in public service gets more corrupt. Somebody, an average Nigerian who has the tendency for corruption, gets more corrupt when his boss or his leader is corrupt. But when his boss or his leader abhors corruption, that may not make him not to be corrupt at all, but now he has to be very careful and circumspect. And that reduces the degree or extent of his corruption. Perhaps one thing I didn't tell you is that when I was the Attorney General of the state, in fact, I started while I was Commissioner for Lands, Mr. Peter Obi made me the Secretary of the State Tenders Board. And when I became the Attorney General, he made me the Chairman of State Tenders Board. And we processed contracts, state contracts, and interviewed and interacted with contractors. Mr. Peter Obi told us, if any contractor ever opens his mouth to tell you that he has made accommodation for the governor, cancel that, disqualify that contractor. He told us, if any contractor opens his mouth to tell you that he has made some provision in the contract sum for the governor, disqualify that contractor. And what is more, after the State Tenders Board had done its bit and now submits the recommendation to the State Executive Council for approval, the governor will intervene and will call the contractor and begin to negotiate again and begin to beg and plead with the contractor that Anambra state government has no money. So you find that in some cases where after strenuous negotiation with contractors and we thought that we had gotten the best bargain for the state government, the governor himself will still intervene and get more discounts. That was the extent to which he was prudent in managing the state resources. I'll tell you another scenario again. As a commissioner, I have a project to do in my ministry, and you do a memo to the governor. You find the governor always interrogating your figures and reducing, even for travels. You want to travel and you need the permission of the governor and also monetary approval for your travels. You find Mr. Peter, I'm sorry to say this, but that is him. You find him reducing 10,000 naira here, 5,000 naira there, 3,000 naira there. And one day, I had to ask him, Your Excellency, why do you do this? And he said to me, you will believe that in a month from the thing I do, we save between 3 to 5 million on these small savings. So his own is to do whatever can be done to improve the financial well-being of the state. Such a person cannot have anything to do with corruption. Then finally, Mr. P2B himself has told the world how much he left for the incoming government after him. He has published the statement of account from the banks showing the balances. And he has told Nigerians, whoever is in doubt, go to those banks and verify. So in the absence of any statement from the banks contradicting him, I think whatever any other person says should just be ignored. So I believe I've addressed the issues you raised. Are you there?
Yeah, we can hear you, sir. Thank you very much for...
Just before the next question, I will also like to add that if you verify, you will find that most of the commissioners, if not all, who served under P2B went back to their respective jobs. I challenge anybody to show me any commissioner who served under P2B that is contesting election, either for the National Assembly or for governor, and so on. Unlike those who served his successor in office. What does that tell you? Tells you that we were there, we did our work, and we went back to our jobs. If we were corrupt and we made money, I don't think all of us would have resisted the temptation of going full blast into politics to contest election. That again is a clear indicator of how Mr. P2B and his team worked with respect to whether we were corrupt or not. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for that answer and for the addition. Before we go ahead, I'm going to appeal to the ladies here. If you're a lady and you want to speak, please do well to request the mic. I usually like a mixture of both genders on my spaces for gender balance. Bishop, I see you. I think your network had issues, but you're back now. Good to have you back. I'm going to pass the mic over now to Ogunyemi. After Ogunyemi, we're going to have mixture activists. So over to you, Ogunyemi.
Thank you, Peps. Thank you, Magnindo. Thank you, our Mr. Peter. Again, my own question is the issue of investment that Peter Obi did purely, and people have been saying that he invested the state money in his family business. See, can you clarify it? Let it be once and for all, like, because you are more of a legal person, so you have more. If he had any investment, you will have known that there's a legal backing for such investment. Please, can you give us more clarification on that? Thank you, sir.
I can tell you, and you can take it to the bank, there was no such thing. The investments that were done with the Anambra State Fund had nothing to do with the family business of Mr. P2B. I know that Anambra State government invested in Submiller, that is the Interfact industry. I know that Anambra State government invested in Orient Petroleum Resources PLC, and maybe one or two others. None, as far as I know, belongs to the family or family business of Mr. P2B. But you hear all sorts of things, and you will even hear more. But I keep saying, whoever makes such an allegation, the least the person ought to do is to provide the documentary evidence, because you invest with documents. There is documentary evidence for every transaction. You don't invest orally. And we're talking about a man who, on his own, has refused to take any pension from the government of Anambra State as a former governor of the state. He said, no, it's not right. You see, when you make certain allegations, I think it's only fair that you look at the character of the person you are talking about. They don't add up. They certainly do not add up. So such unfounded allegations, in my view, should be discountenanced. And let me say that no matter what somebody does, you must find people that will try to fault you. Those of us who happen to be Christians know very well that Jesus Christ came on earth, went about doing all manner of good, healing people, feeding people, preaching the good news. How did he end up? On the cross, crucified. So I use this as an example to people. Just do what you know is right. What people say about you does not define who you are or what you are. So I'm not surprised that such negative things are being thrown around about P2B, particularly now that he is seeking the highest elective office in the country. We expect more of such things. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Sorry about that. My network knocked me off. So it's expected, and I think we all know that someone who is as prudent as our principal cannot go into the coffers of the Anambra State government to bring out money to invest into a family business. I mean, if you look at it very well and look at his character and what he has done for the state, you know that that's an impossible, and I can say that it's an future impossible statement, which will not happen when he becomes president of Nigeria. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. If excuse me,
yeah,
you know, we structured this interaction to end at 1:30, but I allowed it to continue for two reasons. One is that my introductory statement was supposed to be for 30 minutes, but I overshot by about another 15 minutes. And then secondly, we have had interruptions of network along the line. But I think we must tailor it so that we can end at 2:30, please.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. So we have about 15 minutes more for this space. Magnific Jude, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Bishop.
Okay, you can take over now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Commissioner.
Thank you.
We appreciate having you here, and thank you, sir, for your detailed submission to every question asked. So I'll be taking over from here for the next 15 minutes, hopefully. So I would plead if you can give us a little more time, because we have quite a number of people here that are willing to ask some vital questions, which would help us moving forward in combating some of those knucklehead opposition, and most possibly bringing more people into the obedient family. I'm just pleading. Maybe that would work. So let's take the next person. Miss Pels, I don't know who was the last person on your list, if you don't mind. Let
Okay.
me continue with that.
Activist was supposed to go next, but I can't find him here anymore. So you can just go ahead and take your own cue.
Okay, guys, please, I just want us to go straight to the question. Please, just ask the question so he can respond on a timely manner, and we'll go to the next person. So let me go with Madrigo. Madrigo, you go first, and then I'll go with after you, Ebuka goes, and then Chidam. So Madrigo, Ebuka, and Chidam in that order. The space is yours, man.
Okay, good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, Admiral. Good afternoon, Magnificent Jude and Miss Pels and Bishop. So, you answered my question, but I want us to be able to like put this thing out there so that people can easily find it. You said there was an investigation carried out into the Okozo killings. That is, 35 people that were found between the boundary of Enugu and Anambra states. And from what I've heard and from what I searched when I saw that particular news on the news list, that a white paper report was released by your administration. Is there in any way or form that we can go and find this report and put it online and put it on Twitter here so that people can easily see, so it can be easily accessible? Another question I wanted to ask is, and I'll make it very brief. Obi was said to have, or we have seen videos on how he accommodated people from Kogi State. What was his plan on emergency management and humanitarian services, and what was the policy like? Thank you.
Thank you very much. On the issue of white paper, I will make efforts, and if I'm able to lay hands on it, I will upload it for you people to see. But you will also understand that we are no longer in government, but I'll do the much I can to see whether I can lay hands on it. With respect to emergency management, we have an agency. We had an agency, I believe it's still there. That is the State Emergency Management Agency, SEMA. And this flooding comes periodically. It doesn't happen every year. But it was so much in 2012. And the management was that those who were affected were evacuated and camped, and the provisions made for them until the flooding receded and they were able to go back to their homes. Now, the flooding also affected the area which we call the Onitsha industrial layout, where we have so many industries concentrated. But incidentally, that layout is by the bank of the River Niger. Professor Okuna did a graphic description of how P2B personally went around to assess the extent of damage and to do whatever was possible to come to the aid of the victims. Incidentally, Professor Okuna told you about an industrialist whose factory was flooded, and the P2B had to personally walk through the flood to get to the scene for proper assessment. Incidentally, the CEO or the chairman of that establishment happens to be my client now. And he never stops talking about the man called P2B and how he came to their rescue during that flood disaster. So, like I said, it's not something that occurs every day or every year. It's something that happens periodically. after many years. It happened in 2012, and it caused so much havoc. And the state government deployed materials, funds, facilities to come to the aid of the victims. I don't know whether that addresses the issue you raised.
I believe that did address the issue, sir. So let's move on to the next question real quick. So Ebuka, the space is yours. Go for it, man.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you very much, Barrister. My question is this. There was a time Peter B said the reason why he didn't organize local government elections was because he was taken to court concerning it. I just wanted to confirm, maybe you can expatiate on that. And secondly, there was a law, I don't know, that he made then, correct me if I'm wrong, where if you are a kidnapper and you are residing in a building and you are being caught, that building will be destroyed or something like that. So I just wanted to explain or expatiate on those two areas, if I am correct. Thank you.
Yes. With respect to local government election, yes, it is true. At one point in time, the state electoral commission was taken to court with respect to the conduct of local government election. And as a law-abiding government, we had to wait for the court litigation to abate. But even before then, if you see how Peter Obi came into office and the ordeals he had to go through, the tenure issue, the impeachment issue, and so on, with the result that even though he was sworn in 2006, he never actually got to settle down for governance until about 2008, 2009. Then there was this, and at that time he set up the State Independent Electoral Commission to conduct local government elections. And in that commission, we have clergymen who were members of that commission because he wanted free, fair, transparent, credible election. But with all this coming up, that election could not be conducted until much later. Eventually, the local government election was conducted, and the elected local government chairmen and councillors were sworn in. But that was towards the end of his administration, and those elected local government chairmen and councillors remained in office until he left. But even though there were obstacles that made it difficult to conduct local government election, if you go to the local governments and see the development on ground, you will marvel. So people have complained, yes, local government election was not done when it ought to have been done, but I'm not sure I've heard anybody say that local government fund was misappropriated. You won't hear that one because it never happened, except for somebody that wants to be mischievous. So that is for local government election. Your second question, please remind me, what's the second question again?
It's about the destruction of a building if a
exactly.
Kidnapper. Yeah.
Yes, in fact, there was a law. And many properties were destroyed, were demolished, because the level of kidnapping became so rampant that it needed drastic action. But I can tell you, even today, many states have now followed suit And then now, the other day, I was reading either in Imo or Abia, where buildings where kidnappers use as then were being destroyed. So it has the benefit that even if the owner of a building is not a kidnapper or has no association with kidnappers, you have to make sure that your property is not being used. If you have an uncompleted building, put somebody there. Don't leave it. So it went a long way in addressing that menace. And you know, there is nothing as horrible as kidnapping. An armed robber will stop you on the way and steal your money or your car or any other property. A kidnapper will stop you and steal you. So it is very horrifying. And I do not think any measure is too drastic to address it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your submission. Hey guys, please, I would sit down real quick. Give me a minute. I have to take somebody before you real quick. He's an in-house journalist. He's doing a wonderful job for us. He's a brain behind all this that we're doing, to be honest with you guys, and I would not really let him pass by without giving a 1 or 2 minute submission here. So, Ibanda, please, the space is yours. Go for it real quick. Thank you for all you're doing. We appreciate you. And guys, please follow him, subscribe to his magazine, and make sure you support him real good. Thank you so much, Ibanga. The space is yours, man.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pearl. Thank you very much, Bishop. Thank you, former Honorable Commissioner. It's just so pleasant that you have been able to grace this platform to talk about your friend, your former boss, and the presidential candidate of the Labour Party. Now, I have a few questions to ask. One of them is, was there or is there or has there been any form of litigation or case, as since you are the Commissioner for Justice and Attorney General, is any member of your team or Obi himself facing any investigation or litigation by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission or the ICPC? Is there anything like that, so that we have it on record that this man was or is facing that kind of investigation or yes. Number two is that there are governors who are accused of impunity, and a lot of things had happened in Anambra. I know as a journalist at that time that Upper was a place you would not go anyhow. In fact, during the crisis between Ngige, Mbaniriju, I was Punch newspaper at that time had sent me to Anambra to go as an undercover because they believed that my colleague, the Punch correspondent who was in Anambra in Oka, was taking sides. So I was sent there. In the night when I arrived, it was difficult to come down in Upper Iweka from Port Harcourt. How did the Obi administration control the insecurity in Anambra State without impunity, some level of impunity that was challenged in court? Because there was none. Please just pick those two questions.
Yes, thank you very much. Now, with respect to investigation, you know, a lot of funny things happen. I am aware that there was an invitation by EFCC for reasons not disclosed And because Mr. Peter Obi, again, is somebody that always believes in the rule of law, he had to go to court for the court to determine the propriety of that invitation. And at the end of the court process, the court ruled in his favor, and that was the end of that matter. Now, with respect to security at Opiweka, yes, there was a time Opiweka was a no-go area. I don't know the year you are talking about that you came, and it was difficult to get down at Opiweka. But that was one of the reasons why His Excellency Mr. Peter Obi had to sanitize Opiweka. That was the reason why he had to build that 6-lane road with street lights, cleaned up the place, beautified the open spaces, and installed joint security patrol. And after these things were done, Opiweka became safe. It was then possible for you to walk through Opiweka even at night, because the security men were there. And the state government was sustaining their upkeep. So they were there, and people were safe, and people were happy. I cannot say exactly what is the position at the moment, but I know up till the time Peter Obi left office, from the time he went into that area and cleaned it up till the time he left office, it was a safe place to be.
Okay, sir. Let me come in with this. In Nigeria, when governors are facing litigation, either electoral issues or issues while they are in office, they use state funds to pay for the services of lawyers, very senior lawyers. In fact, they'll parade an array of senior advocates and very intelligent lawyers. Now, Obi had been facing litigation right from day one. He did not win. I mean, he won an election, like Okuna said. He was not sworn in, and some other person was sworn in. Is there any record or anywhere that, let me just put it there, because since you are Commissioner for Justice, how the cost of his administration, the ADS.
Your voice is breaking. Your voice is breaking.
Okay, what I'm saying is, how did he fund all his litigation? Because he had quite a lot of them. Was the State Minister of Justice involved in those cases, directly or indirectly? How did he fund this litigation? Because there were many of them, and they were high-level litigations.
Yes. First of all, let me remind us that Mr. Peter Obi, before he became governor of Anambra State.
Mr. Ibanya, are you done with your question?
I'm already answering.
I'm done.
Yes, and I'm saying that Mr. Peter Obi, before he became governor of Anambra State, was a rich man by any standard, and could afford to pay for litigation or for the services of lawyers. He could very well afford it from his personal resources. Number two, all payments by the state government to external solicitors or counsel are processed through the Ministry of Justice, where I was in charge. So I can tell you that there was absolutely none or no situation where the fee for the personal litigations of P2B was paid with the resources of Anambra State government. None. Absolutely None.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir. And I want to use this opportunity to please beg you to spare
I
us
think
some more time.
I think we must continue. We must start to conclude because I'm sorry. I would have liked to go on, but I have a meeting I must be in now, and I have delayed that meeting now for nearly 45 minutes, and I can't delay it any further, please.
Wow. Okay, thank you so much, sir. Let's just take this one last question. Chidom, go for it. Chidom, go for it.
Yeah, good afternoon. All protocol observed. I want to go straight to my question. Sir, during his tenure, how much was your salary?
Let me see. No, that was a long time ago. We left office going to 9 years now. But I think the salary of a commissioner then would have been in the neighborhood of maybe 400,000 or there. I'm not sure. I need to look at my pay slip now because it has taken some time. But maybe the neighborhood of 400,000 if it was as much as that. But I can tell you it was nothing to write home about. But we were working because we wanted to make a difference.
Wow, that is impressive.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I must thank that is Pearl and Bishop that hosted this interaction. I must tell you that if you enjoyed it, I think I enjoyed it more than you did. It has taken me back memory lane, and we've recalled those things we did that we are happy when we remember. And like I said at the beginning, the obedient movement is something anybody that thinks well of the future of this country should embrace, because that would appear to be the only hope we have for now, and that hope must not be dashed. So I thank you for the efforts you people are also making. Whatever we're able to do on our own part here, we will also do.
Please, the lady, I want to ask a question, please, before you go. It's a labor-related case. I want to ask, sir, please, don't go. Please, don't let me talk.
It's very difficult to say no to a female voice.
Please, sir. You
Please,
just
go ahead.
have to answer me. Thank you, sir.
Go ahead and ask the question. Go ahead, please.
I really want to. I thank you for honoring this space, because it's a sign that our president, come 2023, will be highly accessible. Because if we can talk to the Attorney General, former Attorney General of Anambra State so easily like this, it shows the future of Nigeria, how accessible the presidency will be. Me, I'm with a team, Ensta Foundation. The purpose of our foundation is an amendment of the labor law. I am trying to drag a case with my employer. And through that, I discovered a lot of things about the labor law that is just too unfair. And my lawyer advised me that except with the assistance and the introduction of the ILO, our law is too harsh. So as the Attorney General, sir, I think I want to work with you. And
hello?
Sir, I want to advise you. I said when you will be there, when Obi will be our president, I will still want to work with you as per this amendment of this labor law. How is it possible for our labor law, this harsh labor law, archaic labor law, to be amended, sir? That's what I want to talk about.
Okay, thank you very much. You know, one thing is that most of the time we don't make use of what we have. Labor is on the exclusive legislative list. What it means is that the states have no role to play there. It is the federal government. And As at now, we even have the National Industrial Court, which adjudicates over labor and trade union matters exclusively, to the exclusion of any other courts. Now, with respect to the extant legislations, no legislation is perfect. And our system makes provision, even for a person like you. You have somebody representing you in the House of Representatives. You have somebody representing you in the Senate. That is why they are there. In a situation like this, you meet or you reach out to your representatives in the National Assembly and discuss the matter. There is provision for private members' bill. A private member who knows what he's doing and who is attentive to his constituents will listen to you and possibly introduce a bill in the National Assembly. It's not only the executive that introduces bills. But then, having said that, let me also reassure you that if His Excellency Mr. Peter Obi becomes the president, as we all hope he will, any legislation that is harsh on the people and that is brought to his attention, I'm sure he will quickly refer it to the Attorney General to look into the matter, whoever may be the Attorney General at that time. So my answer is that even now, you can start making effort in that direction. But if it doesn't work out, when our hope is realized, maybe the prospects will be better. Thank you very much.
Amen, sir. Thank you for allowing me. I pray it will work out because you are more accessible. These people we have tried, they told us they would just dump all these bills that it will not work out. I'm praying and I'm believing God that you'll be there and we'll see it through. Because a lot of our youth, we have in Yerbong Omeran case where she was raped and murdered. We have a lot of people that are hired and fired on ground that a Russian was my boss, and it just did it in a very traumatizing way. But let's see what happens after 2023. Then in 2023, then I know we will achieve it. God helping us. Thank you, sir.
It's all right. Thank you very much. I wish you well.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate your time with us, and thank you for this wonderful submission and answer you gave to questions asked. We're looking forward to seeing you again, if you don't mind, sir. Before the end of the year, if time permits, please, we will try to see if we can have you back again.
I am available once we can structure another space. We'll interact again. Like I said, I've enjoyed this one. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. So, sir, even before I reached out to you, I could imagine how extremely busy you would be. And when I did